Mr. Speaker, since spring, we have talked about this government's ill-conceived carbon tax and how it will affect families, school boards, charities, food banks, and on and on. We also need to consider how this carbon tax will harm the second largest industry in this province, agriculture. To the Minister of Agriculture and Forestry, you have an agricultural background. Does this NDP government have any idea about the devastating effects that this carbon tax is going to have on the folks in this province who are charged with feeding the world? Or does your government care?
Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and for the member for the important question. Absolutely, we understand, the importance of agriculture to the economy of Alberta. It's our second largest industry. It's a basis of a culture of this province as well. We've taken into consideration. I've been listening to farmers, producers, processors right across the province to ensure that we have their ideas, that we have their thoughts going forward, so everyone can do their part in climate change, Mr. Speaker.
First supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, given that any and all increases to agricultural operations are borne solely by farmers and ranchers, and given that farmers cannot pass on the increased costs of producing a bushel of grain, nor the increased costs of putting extra weight on cattle before market, it is fair to say that farmers in every corner of this province feel betrayed because their government is the one cutting into their bottom line and indeed threatening their livelihood. Mr. Speaker, farmers want to know, why is this government so determined to tax them right off their farms?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and for the member for the question. As I said, we are listening to the farming community. That's why we've had the opportunity to exempt marked fuel, the purple fuel that they use on their diesel and their gas right across the province. Something we've heard, continuing our conversations with other sectors, Mr. Speaker, including greenhouse, intensive livestock operations, irrigation operators, and all farmers right across the province. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Second supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, given that natural gas, propane, and electricity, even with the new cap, are huge non-discretionary costs for grain farmers and ranchers, and given that these costs are only going to skyrocket in January because of the carbon tax, and given all costs related to agriculture will increase, including the cost of shipping grain from the bin to port, farmers and ranchers are worried. They're wondering how tough it's going to get to make a living on their own property. Will the minister please explain exactly how this carbon tax, quote, is uniquely tailored, end quote, to meet the needs of Alberta farmers?
Good question. Good question. Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and for the member, thank you very much for the question. Very recently, a few weeks ago, I was able to announce a $10 million fund to help farmers find those efficiencies with their carbon issues. We've had support from the crop sectors, greenhouse sectors, and intensive livestock operators who see this as a good, positive step. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.